A lioness stands alone, surrounded by snarling hyenas, shielding her trembling lion club. The air on the savannah is thick with menace, a cocktail of dust, dry grass, and raw fear. 7 pairs of eyes, burning with a crazed and ancient hunger, form a tightening circle. Their infamous laughter is no joke here. It is the sound of impending doom, each cackle and whoop a promise of the violence to come. The lioness's body is a coiled spring of maternal fury. Her lips are peeled back from teeth designed to tear, and a low, guttural growl rumbles from deep within her chest. It's a sound of pure defiance. Behind her, tucked beneath her flank, the small lion club is a portrait of terror, its wide eyes reflecting the ring of predators. But the hyenas are only the immediate threat. In the distance, silhouetted against the vast expanse of the green savanna, another power watches. For massive male lions stand on a gentle rise, their dark manes like crowns in the golden light. They're the new kings, the usurpers, the very reason this lioness and her lion club are exiled and alone. Their presence is an agonizing paradox. They're not allies. In the brutal laws of their world, they are the final executioners. The lioness is trapped, caught between the cackling jaws of the present and the silent, deadly judgment of the future. For her and the precious life she protects, there is no escape. There is only the fight. To understand this desperate moment, we must rewind. Only weeks ago, her world was one of order and belonging. Life unfolded under the African sun on a sprawling green plain, dotted with the elegant, flat-topped acacia trees. Her pride was strong, ruled by older, familiar males. Days were a rhythm of hunting, sleeping in the shade, and the soft, playful calls of the young. Her lion club was born into this sanctuary, its first breaths taken in the safety of the collective. It was a world that felt like it would last forever. But forever is a fleeting concept on the savannah. The change came like a storm on the horizon. First a whisper, then a scent on the wind, and finally, a physical presence that shifted the balance of power irrevocably. A new coalition of 4 male lions arrived. They were younger, larger, and radiating an aura of raw ambition. They moved with the silent confidence of conquerors, and the old guard, weary from years of rule, could not stand against them. The takeover was less of a battle and more of a quiet, inevitable surrender. For the lioness, this change was not about territory. It was about a dark whisper of nature she understood in her very bones. She knew the unwritten law, the brutal biological imperative that drives new kings. To secure their own legacy, they must erase the past. This means eliminating any lion club sired by their predecessors. She saw the new male's eyes glance towards the young, and in that glance, she saw a death sentence for her offspring. She was faced with an impossible choice: stay and watch her lion club be killed by the new pride leaders, or flee into a world where every shadow could hide a new danger. Her maternal instinct screamed louder than her fear of the unknown. One evening, as the pride settled under a sky full of stars, she made her decision. With a final, lingering look at the family she was leaving behind, she nudged her lion club to its feet and slipped away into the darkness. Every step was a gamble, a heartbreaking retreat from the only home she had ever known. She chose exile over grief, the vast, unforgiving wilderness over a guaranteed death. She guided her lion club towards the rolling hills in the distance, towards a dense woodland of acacia trees, a place she prayed would be neutral ground, a forgotten corner of the world where she could raise her young in solitude. She was running from one danger. Completely unaware, she was running directly into the arms of another. The acacia forest seemed to grant her prayer. Inside the dense grove, the world softened. Sunlight filtered through the thorny branches, dappling the low green grass in shifting patterns of light and shadow. The air was still and quiet. Here, for the first time in days, the lioness felt a flicker of hope. She had found a defensible position, a hidden sanctuary. Exhaustion, deep and profound, finally began to weigh her down. While she rested, her lion club, with the beautiful ignorance of youth, explored its new, temporary world, batting at insects and tumbling playfully in the soft grass. For a precious, fleeting moment, there was peace. But they were not alone. This very forest was haunted by old memories. It was the former territory of a large hyena clan, the same clan that had been violently driven out years ago by the Lioness's original pride. And hyenas do not forget. A lone scout, patrolling the edges of its new, less desirable territory, caught a scent on the wind. It was faint but unmistakable, lion. And beneath it, the smell of a vulnerable lion club. A silent, electric signal passed through the clan. The matriarch, a large, battle-scarred female, recognized the opportunity. This wasn't just about food. This was about revenge. This was justice in their eyes. With the chilling, coordinated stealth that makes them such effective hunters, the clan moved in. They were specters in the dappled light, using the trees and low bushes as cover, their paws making no sound on the soft earth. They formed a wide, patient circle, their traps slowly constricting around the unsuspecting mother and child. Overwhelmed by the physical and emotional toll of her journey, the lioness's heavy eyelids drooped. She drifted into a light, uneasy sleep for just a moment, a single, fatal moment of rest. It was a low growl that jolted her awake. Her eyes snapped open not to peaceful sunlight, but to a ring of grinning, expectant faces. The hyenas had closed in. Her lion club, no longer playing, stood frozen just feet away from her, suddenly and completely surrounded. From a rolling hill a half-mile away, Ranger Elijah Mwangi lowered his binoculars, his heart pounding in his chest. He had been on a routine patrol, tracking the movements of the new lion coalition, when he heard the first faint cackles. Now, he was the sole human witness to a scene as old as Africa itself. His job was to observe, to protect the ecosystem, not to interfere in its brutal, natural dramas. But as he watched the mother's desperate predicament, his hand instinctively moved towards the tranquilizer rifle mounted in his Jeep. The trap was sprung, and the odds were impossible. Awakened to a mother's worst nightmare, the lioness exploded into action. There was no time for fear, only for instinct. She launched herself forward, a tawny blur of muscle and rage, placing her body squarely between the pack and her lion club. The air erupted. Her roars were desperate, torn from her lungs, a sound of both fury and terror. The hyenas met her challenge with a chorus of manic laughter, fanning out to press their advantage. The fight was a chaotic dance of death. A hyena lunged from the left. She met it with a powerful swipe of her paw, claws tearing through skin. Another snapped at her hind legs from the right. She spun, teeth gnashing, driving it back. But for every one she repelled, two more moved in to test her defenses. She was a fortress, but a fortress under siege from all sides, and she knew her walls would eventually crumble. Her energy was draining, each roar a little weaker, each swipe a little slower. The hyenas sensed it, growing bolder with every passing second. Ranger Elijah Mwangi watched, his knuckles white on his binoculars. He knew the law of non-interference. It was the first, most sacred rule of his profession. To intervene was to play God, to disrupt a cycle that had governed this land for millennia. Yet, the sight of the lone mother fighting so valiantly against such hopeless odds, the tiny, terrified lion club cowering behind her, it tore at his soul. He could end this. A few warning shots, perhaps. But what then? As he debated his impossible choice, his eyes were drawn back to the horizon. The four male lions were no longer just watching. Their posture had changed. They were rigid, alert, their heads held high, their focus absolute. They were not watching a territorial dispute. They were watching an attack. Just as a particularly brazen hyena finally broke through the lioness's guard and made a direct lunge for the lion club, the world seemed to stop. A roar, deeper and more powerful than anything the lioness could produce, thundered across the savannah. It was a sound of pure, absolute authority. It was the lead male. He was no longer on the hill. He was charging, a wave of muscle and dark mane, He covered the ground with shocking speed. A heartbeat later, the other 3 followed suit. The hyenas' triumphant cackles turned to yelps of terror. They had been so focused on their cornered prey, they had forgotten the apex predators. The charging lions hit their ranks like a tidal wave. The fight wasn't a fight anymore. It was a rout. The sheer power and fury of the male lions were overwhelming. The disciplined hyena pack dissolved into a panicked mob, scattering in every direction. The kings who should have been the final threat had just done the unthinkable. They had become her saviors. The dust settled. The frantic cries of the fleeing hyenas faded into the vast silence of the acacia forest. The lioness stood panting, her sides heaving, a trickle of blood running from a gash on her shoulder. The immediate danger was gone, but now she faced a new, more terrifying one. She turned, every muscle tensed, to face her rescuers. She was surrounded, not by enemies, but by the very lions she had fled, the architects of her fear. She instinctively lowered her body over her lion club, ready to fight to the death to defend it. This, she thought, was the end. Ranger Elijah, his camera now recording, held his breath. He was witnessing something that defied every textbook, every documentary, every rule he had ever learned. This was the moment of truth. The male lions, instead of advancing with aggression, simply stood for a moment, their powerful chests rising and falling. The lead male, the one who had charged first, took a slow, deliberate step forward. The lioness braced for the attack, but it never came. He lowered his massive head and gave the trembling lion club a gentle, almost curious nudge with his nose. Another male laid down in the grass, a profound gesture of calm, breaking the tension. The ultimate test came from the lion club itself. Guided by an innocence that knows nothing of bloodlines or brutal takeovers, it took a few hesitant steps forward. It walked right up to the lead male, the giant who could kill it with a single bite, and rubbed its small body against his thick, powerful leg. Silence. There was no growl, no aggression, no violence. The male lion looked down at the tiny creature and remained perfectly still. One by one, the other lions relaxed. The lioness, frozen in disbelief, slowly rose from her defensive crouch. Elijah lowered his camera, a slow smile of pure wonder spreading across his face. He had no scientific explanation for what he had just seen. Was it that the lioness's courage had earned their respect? Was it that the hyenas were a common enemy, and in destroying them, the lions had inadvertently protected one of their own kind? Or was it something deeper, something we don't have a word for? A moment of grace in a brutal world. He watched as the lioness, her fear finally receding, lay down a few feet away. The male lions settled around her, and the lion club, not as a conquering force, but as a protective circle. A new pride had just been formed, born not of blood, but of battle and a bond that defied all logic. It was a powerful, silent lesson. Family is not always the one you are born into. Sometimes, it is the one you forge in the fire. This incredible true story reminds us that even in the wildest of hearts, there are moments that defy all logic. If you believe in the power of these unexpected connections and want to see more stories that challenge what we think we know, subscribe to the channel. And be sure to watch this next video, where we explore another unbelievable animal alliance that will leave you speechless.